If you're looking for some ornaments that won't break the bank and also won't break themselves should they fall and hit the floor, you've clicked on the right video. I'll be using my scrap pieces of 5-gallon and 1-gallon paint stirrers, and I may incorporate some whole sticks as well. I'm going to start with these handles that I have left over from some 5-gallon paint stirrers. So I got to looking at these and come up with the notion that they looked a bit like little snowmen. You see the little body here and then a top hat there. So what I'm going to do is paint these white, and I'm using Folk Art white chalk paint in the color White Adirondack. Now I can start decorating my little snowmen. And I've pulled out some buttons from my stash, and I'm going to use my low temp glue and just put 3 little buttons down the front of each of these guys. I'm going to use some puff paint for their little faces, and I don't have orange for a carrot nose, so I thought I would just do some pink. Squeeze out a little blob and then drag it. And then I'll do his eyes with brown. And I want to leave a little space up above for a hat. And if you don't have puff paint, you could totally do this with just regular acrylic paint or some permanent markers. I'm going to be adding some ribbon for a little hat and scarf on these guys. But first I want to do some twine for a hanger. And then I'll camouflage that with the hat. I'll just glue it on the back here. I've pulled out some colorful ribbon that I'll be using like little scarves and hats on these guys. What I want to do is wrap it around the top of his head, and that will cover up the hanger that I've put on there. I had no idea how bad out of frame I was here. But hopefully you can see in the finished snowman how I just wrapped a little piece of ribbon around the top to look like a boggin. Then I put a little dot of glue right in the middle top and pinched that together. And that's going to cover up the paint stick on the end. And then I just took another piece of the ribbon and wrapped it around what I'm calling his neck to look like a little scarf. And there's the first one finished. So here are my little snowmen, all dressed up. I'm going to take a couple of these 5-gallon paint stirrers that were cut on a slant. And I'm going to look for a couple that's similar in length. I want to glue them together and make like a little church. And I could always cut that little bit off there. Yeah, they do have different slants on them too. Let me see, that one's slanted a lot more than the other. I'll put a little bit of hot glue on there. Actually, my low temp glue. Push those up together. Making sure I got those points even. Now, of course, you could paint your little church any color you like. Before I start painting at the bottom, I'm going to take a piece of a craft stick. I'm going to make a little doorway on the church. About yay big, maybe. I'm going to make the door a different color. Make it stand out a little more. I'll go ahead and even out those points. And put a little masking tape around to hold them steady. And I'll use a nail file on those little tattered edges. went ahead and cut down the last two pieces. They don't match up as far as the handle goes, but it will be covered for the most part. The door for this little second church I've got, I'm going to use another piece of paint stir glued on the front. It'll be a square door rather than rounded. I'm doing two different styles of churches. The first one here, I'm going to paint the door pink, and I'm using the apple barrel paint light pink. And then I'm going to make a little window up at the top. Then I'll also go across the top with some more of that pink. I'm going to use my white puff paint to look like snow has fallen all along the top. And I'll do some around those windows too, at the bottoms of the panes. Now I'm going to make a little split on that door, which actually looks like it's a big door that will swing out. These are my Posca paint markers. And let's put some little door handles on there. Some more of these little sticker beads that I've painted. About right there. Push that all the way over to the line. And another one on the other side. And then I'm also going to be adding a wreath. I actually cover this up a little later because I got an idea for something else. Now to cover up these sides here, I'm going to use some greenery. And this is greenery off an old wreath. And I'm not going to try to cut it even. I'm going to have two different heights on that. I think that's a little too bushy. I'm going to trim that down a bit. Yeah, I think that'll be cute. And I will just use my glue gun to attach those. I feel like the windows need a little something else, so I'm going to glue down some of these. They used to be stickers, but the backing peeled away when I was taking them off of the card they were on. Maybe that'll give me the opportunity to make the window look straighter. Go right up the edge there and put my tree down. I'm going to put some puff paint on the trees to look like they're snowed on as well. I decided to do a wreath with some more of that garland pieces off an old wreath because the puff paint was way different color. I just wasn't liking it. And I'm going to use some more of these little strip pearl beads that have lost their backing. I'm gluing them onto the trees and the wreath. I finished off my church by gluing on a little piece of a paint stir that I cut in a point on the top for a steeple. I painted that with the pink color, put a white puff paint cross on it, and then added a yarn hanger. And there's my first church all finished up. I like the tall skinny design, but I'm going to make the next one a bit wider. I'm going to bring in these other two pieces that I cut down, and I'm going to kind of layer them in behind like so. So I'll flip that over and I'll just put some glue right along the edge there and let that hang down in the back or hang over. Make sure I get it evened up. And I'm going to do a steeple on this one as well, and I will cut with my heavy scissors, just angle toward the center of that. Flip that back around and add the steeple. Got my glue heated up. I'll go ahead and add that hanger as well. For the door and steeple on this church, I'm going to use the apple barrel paint called Holly Branch. And I want this style of church to be more traditional Christmas colors. I only have these tiny pieces of 5-gallon stirs left. I'm going to use these for windows And I've scored here. I'm going to make some little tall skinny windows on the bottom, and then I'll just leave this one as is and make kind of an odd shaped window at the top. Hopefully these don't splinter like that. Yeah, that one cracked, but I'm going to put that back together when I glue it down. For the finishing touches, I'm going to put a little piece of green on this side where it's got the indentation there. Make just a skinny tree up against the church there. And I cut down some garland for a wreath over that big window at the top, which by the way I outlined with green. And then I'm going to use a bow out of this pack. I haven't even opened these. It was 350 little green bows for 25 cents. I had planned to use them at St. Patrick's Day, but never got around to it. There's some sweet little bows. Maybe one on the wreath. One under each window, or at the top of each window. I have these 3 pieces of paint stirrers that are almost the same length, but I want to stagger them. So what I'm going to do, putting them on my cutting mat, I'm going to measure here, put this one to be in the middle, drop this one down 1 square, drop this one down 2 squares to where they're just slightly uneven from each other. I'm going to hold them together with some masking tape. And then what I'm going to do is kind of accordion fold them up together. You can paint these any color you like. I've chosen the colors white chalk paint from Folk Art and the color white Adirondack, and 2 apple barrel paints called Light Pink and Pink Eraser. To get the look of wax running down on my candles, I'm going to use some puffy paint in white, pink rose, and cotton candy. And you could use your glue gun. Just let the glue drip down if you don't have puff paints. Or maybe you can freehand some little lines. I'm going to make some circles kind of where I want it to drip to. Then I'll make a line going up. And just simple as that, you've got some running wax on these. I want to give my candles just a slight overlap with each other. So I've heated up my low temp glue gun. And I'm going to go right down the side of this stick that's solid, doesn't have the handle. I'll go right down the side of that and overlap this paint stick, making sure I get it even straight across the bottom. And then I will do the same thing on the other side. And I'm going to use this beautiful colorful plaid ribbon that I got at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to make kind of a large bow to glue on my candles, and I will do the awareness bow ribbon, pinching it up in the middle. And I'm going to pull this tight, give it a twist in the back, and I'll cut off the excess. And I will glue that right around the handle area. Cover those up. And I think this is just beautiful. But a candle needs a flame, right? I'm going to use some of the tips of these fall leaves. I thought those would work out great. I'm going to go with the shorter tips. You can use whatever you've got in your stash. You could use construction paper or a piece of cardboard, another piece of the paint stir, felt. This is just what I have on hand. I'm going to glue them right to the backs of all of these. And I want the side facing forward that would have been the back, where you see less of that black leaf detail. I realized my light pink was still wet, and I made an oopsie there. Touched it up with more of that puff paint. I'm going to cut these down and try to make each end match. Make the end here match this. And I use my handsaw and miter box. I will hang on to these pieces that were left over for now. I may have something to use those for a little later. I had a total of 7 of those scrap pieces, and I wanted to do 3 sets of 3, so I took a couple of my paint stirrers that hadn't been cut yet. Cut the handles off those. I'll use the long pieces a little later for something else. And then I brushed on the side with the writing, some Mod Podge, and turned it down on some scrapbook paper. Now that my little pieces are nice and dry, I cut them apart. I'll trim off a little more of this excess here, and then I'm going to file away anything that's still overlapping, overhanging. I'm just going to file downward. And that'll give me my smooth edge all the way around these pieces. Now I'm going to choose to use pinks because that's my main color that I'm using this year. I'm going to use a pencil and pencil in before I start writing with marker. And it helps a lot having these lines on there. Helps you to write out the words a little more evenly. I'll just go over that with my pink marker. Now you could do this with stickers, or you could stamp the words on, or use a Cricut to cut out the words. I just chose to use handwriting for these. I'm going super simple with the hanger on here. I'm using my cutting mat to kind of keep me on track, so to speak. Just a dot of glue at the top and bottom. And that finishes these projects. Now I'm going to put these 2 pieces to use that I had cut the handles off for the last DIYs. And I'm going to be painting those. One I'll paint with light pink. The other I will paint with wisteria. And I'll be making tags to hang on the tree with mine and my daughter's names. I went ahead and added a twine hanger. And I'm going to add on these little bows that I've made before I start decorating or writing on the other part, because I want to know how much extra space I have there. I used this ribbon from Hobby Lobby with the cupcake design, and I'm going to put it right here at the top. Put a good amount of glue down and stick that down right there. I put a couple of little dark pink beads to cover the wire that I wrapped around. I'm going to use my white Posca marker, paint marker on both these to write out the names. So when I started writing the names, I realized my white marker was running out of ink. So I just grabbed some white puff paint and wrote out the names. And realistically, it looks better with the puff paint than it would have with the markers. So that was a happy accident to happen. Now the finishing touches on these are going to be some little gingerbread men from Dollar Tree. And I'm not going to try to paint those and make little faces because they're way too tedious for me to work with. I'm just going to glue one here, and then that'll be done. Oh, they just barely fit, but they do. I'll just put it between midways of the end of the name and the end of the paint stir. Mine's going to be about right there. And then once I get those glued on, I'll show you how they look on the tree. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my video today. If you liked it, let me know by leaving a thumbs up. And if it's your first time visiting my channel, I would like to say welcome, and I hope you stick around by clicking the subscribe button. Until next time, bye-bye.